Hey, what's up, friends and fellow Antinetters? It is I, Scott Scheper, here on a Saturday, and coming to you live from downtown San Diego, California. Um, I just shot a interview with a kid. He's very impressive. He is 15 years old. He's really interested in knowledge development, and he came across some of my videos on the Antinet for I don't know a while back, and he's been following me and following the growth of this channel and the community of the Antinet community, and so he reached out to me. I don't know, in the past week or so, and wanted to interview me for his podcast. And I said, heck yeah, let's do it. But what I wanted to see is if he would be down to also allowing me to record it and record the video of it and then upload it to my channel so that you guys can all check it out as well. And so in this video, it's an hour-long interview, and we get into a lot of fun stuff, a lot of stuff and background stuff that I don't really talk about in my videos on the Antinet of like how I got started with the system. And you can see from the background I've pulled out a lot of the drawers in aka branches from the Antinet, and show it to you, and show it to Nicolas in the video. And I think a lot of this material is going to resonate with some of you, and even for those of you who haven't made the switch to the Antinet Zettelkasten and are just really curious about analog thinking systems, and maybe for those that are already building an Antinet Zettelkasten and have been following this channel, I think this interview is going to be very interesting for you to watch, to glean some more insights and of the whole nature of this beast, and this crazy little niche that we are embarking upon together. So anyway, please enjoy this recording of this interview, and I'll talk to you later. And well, best of luck. And anyways, I'll cue it up, and we'll get into this interview now. All right, peace and love. Bye.
Yeah, very happy to actually get to talk to you, because I've been following your channel basically since you posted your first video, and just immediately notifications, because I had been learning about Zettelkasten for a while because I was just curious about it. And then I randomly just stumbled upon your channel and was like, this is going into so much more specific depth than anything else I had seen. So yeah, very, very, very happy to actually get to talk to you here.
Yeah, you've seen it go from probably like, I don't know, no subscribers at all to where it is today, which is, it's still very niche, like, I think like 580 people subscribed, but it's pretty incredible and awesome. We're talking about like creating a thinking machine out of pen and paper.
Yeah,
so it's like, I'm just
very
glad
cool.
I have more than 10 people. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, very, very cool. So I guess the first question, just for anyone who hasn't heard about Antinet, because I do believe that is a term that you coined, because I couldn't find it anywhere else. So what exactly is an Antinet, and what does it stand for? Because I do know it's an acronym as well. But
yeah, so the how the term originated was probably about a year ago. I was building this out, and I was like, okay, this I kind of wanted a cool name to call it, because people are like, what the heck is this thing? And that they would like, like if I would be on FaceTime or something, they're like, what are you even doing? Right. like I remember building it out, and like the this is at my office in downtown San Diego, and the cleaning lady would like kept coming in, to like clean like each day or night when I was leaving. And she, like, I'm in an office where it's all attorneys and, real estate people, professional services. And then she walks into my office, and there's just note cards everywhere and a freaking mountain of, of this drawer. And she's like, this young dude that looks more like a computer nerd. She's like, what is he actually building? So I wanted something cool to call it. And the thing is that the, what I set to build out was essentially the original original form of Nicolas Luhmann, who's the creator of the Zettelkasten. And Zettelkasten in German, or in English, in American English, means notebox. And so I didn't want to call it an analog Zettelkasten, because that doesn't really make sense. It's calling something an analog note box. It's like, why should we even have to specify that it's an analog note box? Because the digital form and digital instantiations of this whole thing have created a whole rat's nest of all these, in my opinion, made up terms like wiki links. And it's like basically your own personal website system. And I'm like, all right, why? Like, I don't want to just call it an analog Zettelkasten. I'm just going to be that's a mouthful for people that don't even know what a Zettelkasten is. And I just started calling it one day. I was like, not planning on essentially having it be permanently called Antinet. But like, I needed to start calling it something. And I was like, well, I'm going to just call it an Antinet. And then over time, I was like, okay, it's kind of like an analog thinking internet. And then over time, it then evolved to really encompass the four principles. The acronym is ANTI network, which is an analog numeric alpha. Each card has a numeric alpha address in the top right corner, and then tree. So that's the T in Antinet, the first T. And that stands for what Luhmann calls infinite internal branching of you can branch down every one of your thoughts, right? And then index. And index is a way for you to actually hard code key terms into your mind so that when you're reading, you've actually taken the deliberate step of, creating a defined key term so that when you're reading, you can like automatically think of that key term. And then, so it's, and then a network of that, like Luhmann called his a cybernetic network. And so now the Antinet really encompasses that, the four principles of an analog Zettelkasten in Nicolas Luhmann's original form. And it's also, a tongue-in-cheek jab, a double entendre at, the digital workflow, note-taking obsessed warriors out there that just obsess over hotkeys. I used to be one of those people, had like every single Obsidian configuration. I remember I spent one weekend just like, I'm like, where did I was supposed to be writing and taking notes, and I wanted to be working on something and developing my knowledge and creating a book. And I spent like the entire weekend literally going into the the inspector of Obsidian and like customizing its color theme and layout into my own perfect font, my own beautiful thing. And it's like, and then the next week I did that a little bit more. And then I'm like, I'm just such majoring in the minor here. Anyway, yeah. So why it's called an Antinet, it sounded cool, and it was kind of a jab at the digital Zettelkasten, who essentially hijacked the term, and they've ensconced the term Zettelkasten in its own unique thing of like tags and just basically linking, right? And then the other thing is it doesn't really make sense to call it an analog Zettelkasten, aka an analog notebox, because that doesn't differentiate it from other notebox systems like, Ryan Holiday, the author, and Robert Greene. They have notebox system where they don't put IDs in their card. They just, write a ton of note cards, and they put it, into human-friendly labeled categories, which I had done starting in 2006. I just always found there's some incommunicable benefits about learning and writing down notes by hand, right?
Yeah.
And so it doesn't really make sense to call it an analog note box, because it's a specific type, a specific structure of an analog note box that has all four of those principles. So thus, Antinet Zettelkasten, or just Antinet, makes a lot more sense, and it sounds cooler. And yeah, that's the etymological roots of the term.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm having a similar situation with my friends as well, where it's like sometimes like we're on a call and I'm just writing notes or installing stuff into like a system, and it's like we're talking and it's like, wait a minute, I have a note on this, and I go to look it up, and it's, to them, it's very weird, because I don't have, like, yours is right now. Obviously, you have a lot of boxes. You've been doing this for a long time. This is mine right now. So
yeah, that's fine.
it's just funny because it's trying to explain the system that isn't very developed, and I'm very obsessed with it right now. Like, I'm very, very interested, and it's just I find it funny to explain it to people who don't have this just internal interest for it. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
guess the other thing you mentioned with that I actually had written down on my card here. What are the what are the biggest myths that evolved from Zettelkasten as it went onto like digital? As more and more people started to adapt it into like the digital realm, my screen just went black. That's strange. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you, and see you. Everything looks normal.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't see you, but I can still hear you. But
Okay.
yeah, as you know, more and more people started to adopt this in a digital realm, what are the biggest myths or misconceptions that arise from that? There we go.
God, you asked this question at the perfect time. Literally, I'm in the midst of writing which has. Okay, so I'll just show you something real quick. All right. Here's this is the section on the Zettelkasten, the Antinet. It's a book I'm writing, right? And there's more because it links to other ones. And I think, where is it? Like this whole chunk, like right around here, is myths of the Zettelkasten that I've accumulated and have just compiled for the past, I don't know, six months or so, 6 to 8 months, and I have even more. Like I'm halfway through writing this section on the book, and so like this is the stuff that I'm still working on that I like yesterday, and it's like 12,000 words right now. This chapter, I'm like, oh God, I'm gonna have to break this thing up. Yeah, it really does. With side note, like the Antinet, in the analog form really does turn you into a publication writing machine. I don't know how it does so. It just does. But anyway, I'll answer your question. Just off the top of my head, the biggest myths. The first myth is something propagated by Sankey Arens in his well-intentioned but to some degree largely inaccurate book, How to Take Smart Notes. And he writes that there should be, for each idea you have, there should be one note card, right? So that is a myth. Lumen, we find it all over. All you have to do is scan through Lumen's online digital archive, and you will surf through many cards where he will start a thought even in the middle of the card that will then continue on to the next card. And this is an instance. This is something he did in his first Zettelkasten and his second Zettelkasten, which he created for his social theory of everything. And a lot of people, were influenced by Sankey Arens and thought that it was like Lewin was somehow super strict and only had, for every single idea, had one note card. And so they got obsessed with this atomic principle where every thought had to be atomic. And then people have just taken it to a whole new level where it's like, oh, every paragraph needs to be like an atomic linked, and they just make a bunch of like extra work. And really Lumen, as when he would start writing, and I don't know if it's the same with you, that it is for me. It's like, I have a notion of what I'm writing, but I'm not able to actually summarize like the point I've just made largely until like I finish writing it, like on the second card or something. And so you're allowed to continue your thoughts onto multiple cards. From there, you can like naturally break it up and stem off the cards. So that's the first myth. The myth that each note should just have one idea in it. And especially for note cards, it's like you can stem it onto across multiple cards. You should try to kind of be concise and try to get it on like one or 1 to 2 cards. You don't want to like have one thought. I mean, it's actually fine, because if you're gonna have one thought span across 15 cards, it's going to be broken up upon with really a bunch of sub thoughts, that comprise the entire whole. And so that's a myth. And it's not only can we find this in Lumen's online archive, we actually have an instance in Lumen's paper saying it. He said like, oh, if you're the one disadvantage of the whole tree-like system, and internal branching is your original textual thoughts, which spanned multiple cards, get broken up, right, by other cards. So it's hard to find the original thought, which implies that the original thought spanned multiple cards in itself.
Yep.
And so that's one myth. A second myth, and another big one, is that lumen, and this is again propagated by or originated by Sankey Arens, is that you shouldn't write down quotes. You shouldn't write down excerpts. A quote is an excerpt, like writing down word for word what an author says. And Luhmann did this extensively. He even would start a quote on a card and then finish the quote 2 or 3 cards later. And he did this largely in his first Zettelkasten, but there's instances even in his second Zettelkasten of doing this, where he would, write down a full quote of an author, and then, he would then maybe reformulate it or add a reflection on about the note. But the thing that this does, and the reason why this is an important myth to demythify, is because actually writing something down by hand enables one to generate a long-term understanding of that idea, and to stamp it into their mind where they can take it anywhere with wherever they go. Kind of I call it neuro imprinting, which is a concept I learned from one of my mentors, who was a copywriter named Gary Halbert. And he learned, Gary Halbert was and still is, I would consider, the best copywriter of all time, meaning someone that writes, text for advertisements, kind of like Mad Men, right? And how Gary Halbert would sharpen his skills, and how he became the best in the industry, and how he taught all of his students, was a concept called neuro imprinting. That is, he would take the best sales letters and the best, piece of advertisements ever created, and he would write it down by hand. And that's how I
would remember it, right? So then he would internalize the specific things of those advertisements, and then could recreate it from memory, just from the basic principle. That is cool.
Yeah, he had a lesson at training where he would he had 330 headlines, and he asked you, part of the training is, he called it the suck of, you have to do the sucky part of the work and write out every single headline on one note card each. And I have it in my Antinet. I could probably dig it out if you want me to. Let me show you it real quick. I'll just show you. Let's see here. Yeah. Okay. So this section right here, you see this?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Is your screen working again?
Yep, I can see it.
Yeah, cool. Okay, look at that thick. Every one of these is just headlines,
Wow.
How to become a master of English, right? How to outsmart rather than outspeed the competition. These are the best headlines of all time for advertising, and you just write it down and internalize it. So that's a concept of neuro imprinting.
Is that section installed in your Antinet, or is it just in one of the boxes?
Yeah, no, it's installed. So I had been doing I wrote these quotes originally without having the addresses in the top right. I don't know if you can see it. And I still have 2 boxes. Those top 2 boxes are not yet installed into the Zettelkasten system, the Antinet, right? They don't have addresses and stuff. So for the first 2 or 3 months of last year, I spent 5 days a week literally going through my note cards from 2006 and figuring out where it would go in the Antinet, and then installing and putting the IDs on it. And I'm after 2 or 3 months of doing that, I'm God, I need to stop. I need to just start producing more work, but it helped me kind of learn the system, so it's not everyone's perfect. It doesn't matter. If you start late, you can still install your ideas into the Antinet.
Yeah, so something I want to point out that that you did there is related to neuro imprinting, but you literally just got up, reached for the box and took it out. You didn't have to look it up in your index either, which is
Yeah,
another thing with
exactly.
neuro imprinting. You start to like learn the different locations in your Antinet.
Yep. Yeah. And so which is an interesting thing, I think too, is here's another myth is Sankey Aron's, you know how I'm like able to like just recite this stuff on my head off the top of my head? It's because I've
Yep.
neuro imprinted it, you know?
Yep.
Like, so another thing Sankey Aron's says is, you know, when he introduces the Zettelkasten, he says, yeah, you can use the pen and paper version, but I recommend the digital version because of the mobility benefits. So he's implying that, you know, it's more advantageous, the digital Zettelkasten, because you can carry your laptop with you and have the notes with you anywhere you go. But that's a myth. It's a misconception. Actually, when you install, you know, these ideas in the Antinet, you're really installing it in your brain, in your head, and you can carry that with you even into more mobile places than a computer. You can carry that with you into the shower, which is actually a great place to have breakthrough insights. You know, you're like showering and you think of like a great idea. And it's like, you know, so it's like, yeah, you're stamping it into your notebox, but you're also really stamping it, I think, way more effectively, which there's research backing this, into the long-term memory that lives, you know, inside your skull, the best computer that you have. So that's another myth I would say is, and you've just seen it. It's like so when I'm reading, right, I have like the conceptualization of like all of these ideas, you know, and where they are in the Antinet, and at least the term, you know, stamped into my head, you know, so allows, which is very, very important. Yeah, so yeah, that's another myth. Let me think if I can think of any other. I've listed out the big ones. So he didn't write one idea per card. He could span multiple cards. He excerpted, you know, and wrote down quotes to neuro imprint them in his head. The myth of digital being more mobile, right? And it's like, especially in the beginning, like, you know, your deck of you know, Antinet cards, right? Right? Like that's pretty mobile.
I can
So
just bring this wherever. I can stick this in my backpack and bring it to school if I want. Actually, I
yeah,
did that the other day. I
nice,
literally brought this to school to show it to my friends to actually explain how it worked.
nice.
Yeah, it's very mobile, especially at
Dude,
the start.
you have no idea how good, I mean, how envious a lot of people are of you for starting so early, you
I
know?
have heard that.
Yeah,
It's one of the
because
things I've seen so often is like, I wish I started taking notes and actually like organizing them earlier. And then
yeah,
after seeing that a few times, like I'm 15, I should start taking notes and organizing
yeah,
them. I feel
yeah.
like that would be a good idea.
I think I started mine in my junior senior year of college, because I was like, man, I'm learning so much stuff, and I know, like, you know, 2 years after I graduate, I'm gonna forget it all, so I might as well. And I started my notebox back then. um but yeah, yeah, you know, I think I've knocked out some of the main myths. There's definitely some more, like, okay, one more I'll say is the concept of everyone thinks that they're doing Zettelkasten if they when they start talking about it, they're like, oh, I'm doing fleeting notes and permanent notes and literature notes and project notes, and like those are terms that are something that Nicolas Luhmann never used. And
They're so confusing as well. Like
yeah,
it's so confusing terms. When I first learned about them, I was still very confused on like what they actually meant. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I'm hoping I'm working on I'm starting to teach people now and train people, and start uploading it. I think you might have seen the last video.
Yep.
And it's because I really want to streamline and make it super simple of how the Antinet works, and I'm making strides. I don't know if you've seen the evolution of my videos, but you
Yep.
know, I've changed up the terminology here and there. I'm like
I
we're
have, yeah.
developing it as we go, you know.
The
And yeah,
exert, observation, and reformulation notes, I think, is the three terms you used
yeah,
last time I recall.
yeah, which that's kind of evolved a little bit, you know, like
Yep.
I call them excerpt notes, and then reformulation notes, which are like summaries, and then
Yep.
reflection notes. But the weird thing is that observation notes still do exist, but they're mostly used on the bibliographic cards, you know, when you're reading from the notes, or when you're reading from a book and taking notes on the card. Those are kind of more like observations. But yeah, I think it's still a little bit too complicated, and my goal is to like really hone in and simplify, and you know, that comes from just trial by fire, you know.
Yeah, doing it, getting feedback, seeing the reaction, even not like verbal feedback from the person, or just seeing how they react is very valuable.
Yeah.
How long have you had your Antinet for? Because you mentioned you started in your junior year of college, and then how long have you had it for?
So I think it's like about 15 years. So it was like around 2006. And you know, again, it was just really just a note box. It didn't have the addresses on it, which has, you know, in the beginning it was fine because it would force me to continually review my cards. But then I got to like 4 or 5 boxes, right? And I was like, man, like then they would get, I used to organize them by like putting them in rubber bands, you know, just putting a rubber band around them to separate like the books and the different ideas, you know. And then like the rubber bands would break, you know, like I hauled it. Like I lived in the US Virgin Islands I live in California now, but I lived in the US Virgin Islands for like 3.5 years. And, you know, I hauled them with me in that move. So they've been with me everywhere. Like they're in the Virgin Islands, and like, you know, the salty sea air or something, you know, broke the rubber bands and they got all disorganized and stuff a little bit. So I've had to go back and, but yeah, I've had them for about 15 years. And then this past year in 2021, the beginning of 2021, I, you know, stumbled upon the world of Zettelkasten, and that's when I started really building it out for the past year, really. And you know, like I worked, it was my like full-time, it is my full-time thing, you know, so I had all the luxury of time to like really integrate it all. And yeah, so yeah, about 15 years, I think. I don't know if I'm doing the math right, but
so you've had those boxes for like 15 years, but you've only started like actually building the system for the past year and a half, roughly.
Yeah, the Antinet, or the Antinet, really. Yeah. But they were all in, these are not the original boxes. Like they're the boxes that I'll just show you actually the original boxes, what they looked like. The original boxes you see on Amazon look like this, you know, just a bunch of these. All right, you probably have something like that.
That is an old.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah. And that's fine for now and for a while.
Yeah, for now it's all good, and I'm expecting it to last until, you know, it gets to a point where I actually need a second one, and then I'll probably invest in better boxes for it. But for now it works.
Yeah, that's one of the things kind of on my maybe a long-term plan, and is, you know, there's always the objection of, well, I would switch, but I'm worried about like, you know, a fire or a flood, you know, ruining my notes and incinerating them, you know. And you know, like on one hand, you know, you could say, oh well, it's like I'm not that worried about that, just because I think the chances are low. And then also it's like, if it did happen, I would just, a lot of it's, you know, captured in my head, and I would just start writing furiously on digital and start publishing all my books in paper, and then I would just start over the next day. Like it wouldn't really affect me that much. But at the same time, it's like, no, there's a good point. It's like fire or flood, what do we do? And so I want to look into actually getting some fireproof and floodproof ones made and start making that available for everyone. You know, hopefully it won't weigh like 1,000 pounds. You know, where you need like a crane.
Boxes.
Yeah, you need a crane to get it in. It's like if the building collapses, it will still be, your Antinet will still be fine. That's the that's life goal right now.
It's a pretty good goal. Just building collapses on the box and the wooden beam that falls on the box breaks instead of the box itself. That's the goal.
Exactly. Yep. Antinet survives. Yeah.
That's funny, but at the same time, it makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I've looked into it. There are like, fireproof and waterproof safes and stuff like that. And so I it's just, I haven't looked into it yet, but I'm sure I can find a company and out there somewhere, either, domestic US or international or anywhere in the world, to get them custom made and, get a huge, order made of it and start, selling and making available to the other anti-netters that are merging, coming out from the woods going, oh, someone else sees the benefits of writing by hand and developing thought by hand. They're coming out of the wood. It's like the woodwork or whatever that expression is. Like, it's great.
Yeah. I'm starting to see that. Like, I joined the Reddit thread, like Reddit community as well. So I'm excited to see how this community is going to grow over time. Because it's still fairly small right now. Like, you're at 580 something subscribers, I think, and the Reddit
on YouTube.
And then Reddit is at like 60 people, I think.
I think it's we're 105 now. 105 strong.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's, my numbers are off then. Wow.
Yeah, we've grown, beautiful. I guess, since you wrote that down.
I guess so. Yeah. So on the topic of growing community, what do you think the, like, I guess, biggest barriers to entry for starting off an Antinet, or what are the, I guess, reasons or excuses that you've heard the most often for not starting an Antinet, if you've heard any?
I mean, I think the biggest barrier to entry is people are just resistant to testing. It's like, I very strongly hold the benefits of, the Antinet and analog thinking systems and writing by hand. But I also understand and know that there's everyone's brain works differently. Some people are just like wired, like the creator of Ethereum, Vitalik Buterin, the cryptocurrency. Yep. He's just like an absolute genius machine at, like, just sits on his computer probably all day and just types like a maniac, right? And thinks in terms of those tools and, those, computer programming, languages and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I haven't, I haven't tried to teach someone or see if they would benefit from the Antinet yet, and they might not. Digital might be the best medium for them. However, my biggest thing is that a lot of people don't know that, and they've just been conditioned by the so-called digital age and being distracted by all the tech companies like Uber and Google and Facebook, that they all of a sudden think that that's also the best system, digital's best system to think in and develop thoughts. And that's not necessarily the case. So the number one barrier to entry, I think, is it's false beliefs and people thinking that, oh, that's cool, but yeah, it's just not for me. And they don't test it. The only right answer is to test both systems. I've tested both systems. I became, a maniac with Obsidian like a year ago, and created like 1,000 notes before I knew it, to only realize that the true value after I started the analog Zettelkasten system. I'm like, oh, it just felt magical and right, and so I think the right answer is to test. So yeah, the biggest obstacle is just false beliefs and doubt and the incredulous attitude I think people have, and also the sunk cost fallacy. I had someone on my YouTube channel write me in the comments section the other day, and this was a YouTuber that I actually followed and watched his video like a year ago, and on Zettelkasten. And I think he was using a digital Zettelkasten at the time, and he just notified and he just made the switch to analog. He's like, it just never felt right. Like, I finally made the switch to analog. It just feels great. It feels amazing. And the barrier to entry for him was the sunk cost fallacy. He had already 1,000 digital notes, and the idea is, oh, I've already like started the system. I'm already 1,000 notes into this thing. I can't like switch now to something that may be better because of the sunk cost fallacy. I've already sunk so much cost and time investment into this thing. I can't switch. And I think that that's well, it's a fallacy for a reason. It's because that just because you've invested in a system that no longer serves you and no longer will serve you going forward, it doesn't mean you have to stick to it because you put a lot of work into it. Like, you know, of those 1,000 notes in Obsidian, like it just was one more notch on my belt of learning. Oh, you know, now I know why it didn't work for me. And, you know, that knowledge is still there. I can consult from it whenever I want to. I don't like, you know, but it's there. And,
Yeah.
so there's no regrets. So yeah, that's one barrier to entry, I think, for someone. I think really the internet serves those people that already are kind of aware of the magic of writing by hand and of stamping. They've never been able to communicate it before, but you know, being able to learn something by writing it down. You know, it's really how I learned everything. Like I taught myself Python programming via writing down all of the concepts and everything by hand, like the programs.
I was going to ask about this. Because in one of your videos, you also mentioned the like learning a JavaScript framework.
Yeah.
Did you get to a point of like writing down syntax on note cards, or was it just like the overall concepts?
No, I would write down syntax. Yeah. You know, like there was space limitations, right? Because a lot of those programs are just, you know, but I would, yeah, then that's how I learned it as well. I would write it down, the syntax. Yeah.
That's, that's that's another level for me, because I'm in computer science course right now, and I'm using Obsidian like only for that, just because it just makes more sense to me to write it down, like have the syntax there.
Yeah, for sure. Like that does make sense.
Yeah, and I mean it probably makes more sense for you as well to write it down by hand. Like it's person to person, different preferences.
You know, like that's how I would initially learn the concept, right? I wouldn't like before I'm writing like a program, I wouldn't like write it by hand, right? But if I'm learning about, you know, ints and dictionaries and for loops and while loops and the tuples and the differences, like I write it by hand. And I think what influenced me into doing that is I had many false starts on Python and learning, like, you know, programming languages and stuff. And then I picked up a course, and it might still be out there, by a guy named Zed Shaw, called Learn Python the Hard Way. And what he made you do is he would make you on flashcards, right, write the logic rules out of Python. And then he would make you write character by character the program in. You cannot copy and paste any program in. You would have to write it, type it out, you know, and get it to run, and then debug it and fix the syntax errors and fix all of that stuff. And but when he required one to use note cards, that then got me in the flow of just starting to use it. And you know, during that, this is in 2010, around there, 2011 maybe, you know, an hour before work, I was working full-time at a startup. Hour before work every day, I would get my coffee, I would go upstairs and, you know, into my room and sit down, and, you know, on the floor, right, and you know, sit down in a kind of like a meditation cross-legged position, because it would just focus me, and I would just write and follow the rules and write on note cards, develop my thought, go to work, and then it just paid off. That's how I learned it.
That's very interesting. I like that a lot. That's cool. Let's see. One of the questions I have written down is another thing here that I'm just curious about is, after like a year and a half now of like actually building up this Antinet system, how much time each day do you spend just writing and installing notes?
Let's see. So right now I'm kind of in different phases because I'm going through the chapters of my book and writing.
Yep.
a lot of the book is written, in like note cards and stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, so you're asking like kind of what my work routine is like in the workflow,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So I work about like, and I time myself. It's like about 6 hours, to 7 hours a day at my office. And the the workflow is this. Like, let's say I'm gonna tackle a book or a section that I need to read. Okay. What I'll do is I'll take I have that block timer on my desk, this like
Yep.
block timer thing. I think you've seen it.
I
I'll just
have
show it to
this.
everyone, so
Yep.
they can see it as well. Yeah. Yeah. So this guy, 60 minutes, and then you just put it top down and then times you for 60 minutes, right? So I will sit at my desk over there and read, right, with the bibliography card, where you write on the front the bibliography details, like the book, the author name, the book title, publication date, all that stuff. And then on the back, you take little bullet point observation notes of specific passages in the book that have resonated with you, right? So I do two 60-minute sessions of of reading, right? So it's about 2 hours of reading. Now, what I then do right after is, because I don't like, reading and taking the notes and then have creating homework for me to like then be like, now I have to develop them into main note cards that get installed into the Antinet, right? So instead of putting it off and delaying, which some people say benefits them, I like to start immediately developing the thoughts and just getting it done and getting it installed in the Antinet. So that'll take me usually another, I don't know, 2 to 3 hours to do. And mind you, like I'm taking breaks here and there, like maybe
Yep.
doing that for 45
Yeah.
minutes and going
Makes
down to
sense.
Starbucks downstairs and, getting, tea or a coffee and like, one of their lunch boxes things and just breaking up the day, and
Yep.
I do that. And then lately, so that's like when I'm in like the research and writing mode. And then I'm writing out, on the main note cards, my thoughts and like writing it as if I'm teaching it to people and writing it as if it's going to go into my book, so I'm like I'm reformulating the thought and reflecting on it and, writing it into that way. And then I go over, so that's like a typical kind of workflow or day. Now, when I get to a section and I'm simultaneously, like a different day would be just taking my note cards like this that are already developed, and then
Yep.
I go over to either my desk and put these next to the computer and then type and read from them, and then just type them into the I use the editor Ulysses for writing and type them in. But as you're typing it in, you're like re-understanding what the hell you've even written. You're like, wait, what does this mean again? Oh, then you further elaborate the thoughts. So it's like not really that boring, actually, just typing in your notes. And then you're adding more and more flavor and making it more conversational, to write the book. And so yeah, that's what I do on that front.
Cool. Yeah. I feel like writing a book or just articles as well, because I've been writing articles just online for a year now. Yeah. So whenever I
Oh,
would learn
nice.
something or build something, I'd write a Medium article. But one of like the biggest things that I found annoying with that process is like when I think that I've learned it and then I go to write and I realize I still don't know anything about this. So then I have to go back, do some more research, build it, or go and explain it to my family or something. Or the only case where I've noticed that I don't reach that barrier is when I actually build a project and then write about the project that I built. So for example, I don't have it in the case anymore. I just have a piece of the case. I built a cryptocurrency miner out of a Raspberry Pi and then put it in a little case out of plexiglass. But
Wow.
so I wrote an article about that, and that was like one of the most fun I've had writing an article compared to just reading and then writing about it, because I was like basically reading an article, taking digital notes, and then just trying to recall digital notes. Whereas I feel like it's a very, very different process to actually have like note cards, and then you're just reformulating what you have literally written like right in front of you.
Mm-hmm. Did you use your note cards to write the Raspberry Pi Miner article?
I did not. That was all based on like it was all based on experience. So that's the other point where I feel like there are two points where I think you imprint things into your longer term memory is when you actually either build something or experience something, or when you write it down by hand. So it's always something to do with like actually using your hands to do something.
Yeah.
Like when you build something, you're using your hands. Yeah. So there seems to be something to do with doing something with your hands and then linking it to your long-term memory, which I find interesting.
There's and I came across this yesterday, the difference between comprehension and understanding, right? Is comprehension is you read something and you can comprehend what it means, right? Like you can read a Wikipedia article and comprehend. But understanding is comprehension multiplied by experience, like actually experiencing it yourself and, working with it and applying it. And so I think the reason probably why you had so much fun writing that article, and probably why it probably did really well too, like it probably attracted attention.
Funny, yeah, you say that, and you're completely right. It actually performed 10 times better than any other one of the articles I had written. So
because you understand it, you don't just comprehend it. You're writing about something you understand versus writing about something you comprehend. Yeah. So that's awesome.
That's a cool definition, comprehending and understanding.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think, because I've also like looked into different ways of like actually understanding things, and one of the ones that I've stumbled upon is like re-explaining it. So I think that's one of the reasons why note cards work so well as well, is like when you actually write something down, you're also writing it as you're explaining it to someone. So it's like you're kind of explaining it to yourself, which is not as much of an effort as going to someone else and then trying to explain something you don't quite understand yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's another one of the reasons why note cards work so well. I'm going to quickly unlock my phone because I have like 2 more questions in my notes that I didn't write down, and now I don't remember them.
By the way, I think for the viewers, I'll say it's like one thing, we jumped right into this, but one thing that's cool about how we connected, I mean, and what I'll say about you is it's very, I mean, I'm blown away and impressed. You're like 15 years old and, you're thinking about knowledge development stuff and sharpening your mind. And, you're going to have a fantastically rich and amazing, life experience ahead of you. And, it's just, I think I'm very impressed by you. I think a lot of our viewers are going to be as well. And it's just really cool to see someone so young that is into developing their mind and, growing so much. So I'm just honored. I'm so grateful that we connected, and that's the thing that I love, about, because I come from the cryptocurrency back, or most recently I started a cryptocurrency company. And then I was like, and then I was like, okay,
learned a bit about it as well when I was doing a bit of like background research as well before hopping onto this call. Like, okay, I know this guy does Antinet stuff and Zettelkasten stuff, but what else does he do? And I stumbled upon XYO coin.
Yeah.
It looks cool as well.
Yeah. So I did that. I started that or co-founded it in end of 2017, early 2018. And just got really, really into cryptocurrency. This is back when crypto wasn't as popular, And then I essentially left that in 2019, and did a lot of traveling for a while and reading, and was really trying to find my passion. After the cryptocurrency thing was fun, but also at the same time I was serving people and customers that they only wanted to do one thing. They wanted to get rich doing nothing. And it's like, you know, if you are your environment and you are the sum of the people you spend most time with, after a while, when the price of the coin goes down and you're serving customers that are just hate your guts, and you're like, wait, I don't want my life to be about this. I want to do something like serving stuff I believe in, right? And then like I started
Yeah.
doing this Antinet stuff and just following the heart. I'm like, it's like I have no idea where this thing is going to go, but I've like it's been really awesome because it's brought me into contact with so many so much more interesting people like yourself that are committed to growth, learning, developing their knowledge, and it's really cool. So yeah.
Thank you very much. I was actually, when I originally emailed you, I like actually when you first responded, I literally ran around my house like showing the response to my family. I was so excited, like holy crap! I actually got to talk to this guy that I've been watching his YouTube videos for like a few months, just following
Yeah.
along. But
That's
yeah.
awesome.
So I found the two last questions here that I have written down. One was just out of curiosity for, do you write things down by hand anywhere other than your Antinet? Because I've done some stuff with journaling as well. And I was curious if you've done anything like that as well, or if it's you purely stick to Antinet.
Yeah. So I don't know if you can see up on the top of the Antinet, there's those,
Yeah.
you know, those Moleskine books. That I don't do that actively anymore. Like I've gone through different phases of testing it out, but I do love writing on the journals just to develop my thoughts while I'm reading some books, you know, and stuff. But I don't really, I haven't done that for the past year. Like I use the Antinet and that whole workflow and system now. Let's see. So the answer is not really. I usually just do note cards and stuff like that. Let's see. I have switched to a pen and paper uh based planner though, which has been interesting. Yeah, because
how's that going? Because
it's really good.
Planning is another part where I've considered, like, actually I've done it a few times as well, where I usually have like my to-do list on like Notion or Google Calendar or something, and I started putting it on this, and it works well as well. Like it's cool. Like actually crossing it off with the pen.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I have a section in the Antinet for like some to-do list stuff. I was experimenting with that as well. And yeah, it's really nice. Like you know, I think it was like the section was like 5492 or something. So I would, on the top right, I would put like 5492/2021/ you know, 01/02. You know, that would be like the date, you know, and so it gets installed in the Antinet. I'll show you my planner right now if you want, if you're curious.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, I rock a fanny pack. So I wear this fanny pack. So I'm making fanny packs cool again. And you know, I have this another kid that I mentor in marketing and stuff and business, and he rocks the fanny pack now too. We're just making fanny packs cool again. You know, it has a pen on it. Has like, and you know, it fits 4x6 inch note cards. But yeah, this is my planner. Let me just show you kind of how it's broken out. It's a let's see. It's weekly based. So, you know, as the whole week. This is something I did in college. It's like I found it so beneficial to write. And the thing is, the reason I switched to doing, you know, this versus note cards is because it allows me to plan out and put down dates into the future. You know, the note card is a good thing for daily to-dos. But when you want to like put stuff down for like, I don't know, a month from now, you know, and plan stuff, this is a little bit more handy, you know. And I think I got this at Office Depot or Amazon. That's been beneficial. That, you know, I found that to be beneficial in terms of actually memorizing stuff and memorizing what you're supposed to do. And because with me, I have ADHD, and I get like, if I pick up my phone to try to like look at the calendar or something, I get hit with like a Reddit notification or YouTube, and I'm like, commenting and going down a rabbit hole.
Yep.
So like, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I was also thinking about installing like the to-do lists into the my Antinet, and I was like, where would I put this, and whether it would actually be useful at all. But I think I might do it.
I think it's, I mean, like, yeah, you
Is
could
there,
if you wanted
I
to.
don't think there's actually like a downside to it though, right? Like there's no downside to installing it into the Antinet.
No. Yeah, you could just like review it. Like I had stuff from like 2017, where I would write down my daily, like, you can call them like, just, I called them thoughts while reading, like just random thoughts and ideas. And like,
Yep.
I've uncovered them, and I'm like, oh crap, I forgot about that. Like I forgot about like that idea. I'm like, oh, I should implement that and stuff like that. So you could have like a section on the daily cards, to just, not everything's going to be developed. It's also fun going through and seeing how your to-dos have changed, and your system has changed and your process, yeah.
All right, and last random question here before we end this off. Something I've noticed that I do quite often is I literally just like sift through my index until I find something, and I'm like, yeah, that's cool, and I just go over to that section. How often do you do that? Just searching through your index for a cool section and just like, that's cool, let me go and explore that again.
Yeah. Lately, because I've really been focused. So your mom?
Siblings. Yeah.
Siblings. I was like, hi.
Yep.
Yeah. Lately I've just been really focused on trying to get this book done, because it's like, I just want to, it's like setting goals and doing that I haven't been really just randomly perusing the stuff lately. But like in rewriting this and reviewing my the sections, at the bottoms I'll have stuff like, like on this card, for instance, I write it where there's like footnotes, and at the bottom there's those like green, and they point me to other cards linked to my Antinet, like, like this links me to 5249/9, and then I'll start navigating a little bit around those sections, and I'll start uncovering stuff. And actually, I think I did that yesterday or the day before, which is how I stumbled upon the idea of comprehension versus understanding. And I remember writing about that, but then I forgot what the difference was. And then I refreshed on it like yesterday or the day before. And I'm like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And and it allowed me to just, it's reverberating in my head to repeat it to you. And that's one thing I'll mention. I was doing something for a while, and I've stopped doing this, but I may restart it. Is there's this one card right here, and at the top it says PH, which means placeholder. So every day I grab like a little swath, and I put it in my fanny pack, right? And then when I'm in the elevator or when I'm out and about, I just review it. Yeah. And the next day when I'm done reviewing it, I go and put it back, and then I take the, out of the next chunk. And the placeholder is a placeholder of where I've like taken out the cards.
Yep.
And I started at like 1000, the section 1000, and I've worked up through, this is 4000, but I've kind of hit a wall. I haven't done it in like a few weeks, maybe more than a few weeks, like a month. And just because I'm kind of like doing that now while writing the book. And that's actually a really interesting practice, of putting a placeholder card and then like carrying around with you a fanny pack, right? And constantly refreshing and reviewing your entire knowledge, working through it. It'll probably take me like a year to work through it, but you're and then you start over at the beginning, and you're like constantly refreshing on all of your knowledge in a systematic way. And you know, what's cool is because this is based on the academic disciplines. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but a book that you need to check out and read is it's called Poor Charlie's Almanac, and it is about written by a guy named Charlie Munger.
Nope.
And
I have not read the book, but I do know who that is.
okay, yeah, so you've heard of him. Yeah, so he has some good a lot of good pieces of wisdom, and one of the things he talks about is you should just go into the big academic disciplines and write down, the elementary knowledge, just get a basic one card understanding of all of the academic disciplines, right? And so this is based around the academic disciplines, right? One branch 1000 is the arts and humanities. Branch 2000, I think, is like social sciences, right? But if you go through, like, there's so many, like, it's just insane how many
A
branches of
lot.
knowledge there are on that. Yeah. And one of my goals, I don't know if I'll ever get to it. I think I will. I just have to like carve out like 6 months of my life or something, is just to go through every single branch and make a card for it and just write like the brief definition from like, Wikipedia, or reformulate it in my own words. That way, kind of like Charlie Munger said, it's like you want to systematically gain a brief elementary knowledge base of every single academic discipline, because they create something called the Lollapalooza effect, which is like a conglomeration of ideas all colliding and being interconnected to one another. And like that's one of my goals eventually, is to like, have every single one be like, written out a little bit, and then have them all where they can theoretically be linked, and just create this like this nice little collision of knowledge in there. Yeah.
Intersecting knowledge is something that I've also been very interested in, because the analogy that's been like explained to me is, let's say you know a hell of a lot about like quantum computing. You are very,
Mm-hmm.
very, very good at quantum computing. There are also a lot of other people that are very, very, very good at quantum computing. But
Mm-hmm.
as soon as you learn something else, like let's say you also know a hell of a lot about marketing, and you're very, very, very good at marketing, there's probably very few people who know a hell of a lot about marketing and a hell of a lot about quantum computing, which then
Yeah.
gives you a specific like intersecting point where no one else is actually able to generate insights from.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
yeah, intersecting knowledge is very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. What's cool about that is like with the Antinet, you can see where your knowledge is weak, and and you really need to improve. Like, okay, so this is section 4214, which is like falls inside like the information science, like 4212, I think, is information science, right? Okay, so this is like 4214 is like I've filled up an entire box now.
Yeah.
When I go to okay, so this section is like psychology and social sciences right here, right?
Yep.
This is
Yep.
2000. Okay, so that's like decent, right? This is my 3000 category, which this is like natural and fundamental sciences, like evolutionary biology. What else do I have in here? Physics, Newton's third law,
Yeah, you can see
stuff like that. And I'm
you can
like,
see the lapse
crap.
in the
Yeah. I'm like, crap. I really need to develop. Like, this is a weakness that I really need to develop. Like, the entire category of 3000 is like right here. Like, and then, so it's like, oh, it would be probably a good practice for me to develop some more knowledge in there. And even 2000 is like it's decent, but and then one section within information science, which is 4214, which is on the Zettelkasten and Antinet, like it's like packed and packs like a full box, right? There's like those ones up there are like, marketing, and a lot of them are full, like copywriting and writing and stuff like that. So it's like, oh, okay, I have a lot of knowledge there. This one right here is like section 5400, which is in applied sciences, and this is like life philosophy. This is, self-development, personal development, mindset stuff. Some of these things are like daily to-dos, right? Like, you know, filled out daily to-do stuff, and like vision goals, stuff like that. So it's like, oh, I've done a lot of like self-development work and, you know, personal development work here, which having all of this in front of you really kind of exposes you to where your where your knowledge base is strong, like what you naturally gravitate to, and then also what could use some development and growth in, which is kind of cool.
So something else I find interesting, just from, you've pointed this out in some of your videos as well, just from like looking at the note card boxes, you can see like kind of when you were writing a lot about them, because I think you were using 3x5 index cards, and then at some point you moved to 4x6 index cards.
Yep.
So in some of those boxes, you can see there are a lot more 3x5 index cards than in others, like the Zettelkasten section has a lot more 4x6. So I just find it interesting that you can see that you were writing more about this section in this time period, because
yeah, exactly. Yeah, the for the first 15 years, like starting in 2006, I only used 3x5 note cards, and I still like them. They're very concise and easier to switch between ideas. But I use primarily now the 4x6 because I'm writing out the main notes for a book, and it's like better to have a little bit more space, is what I found. But you bring up a good point. It's something with like the analog systems. It's they add more contextual cues and information to them. Like I have notes in there that are like on 3x5 inch lime green note cards, which I just know is because I remember it is from my 2006, 2007, college days. Yeah, exactly. Right. And so I come across those and I'm like, oh, wow, this is so early on, like, and it adds more cues to it. And it kind of puts you, and I read about this too, it puts you into that state and that period of where you were in your life too. Because whenever I come across those note cards, I immediately imagine and think of myself in the apartment that I was living in college in, Orange, California, on a, maybe a dreary gray day or something, on my coffee table, writing it down, when I had, I don't know, $500 in my bank account, like, and it's just like, oh, this is the note from that time. It's really awesome to see. That context and that experience is stripped away when, all of your notes are in a, digital text file, and in like Arial or Helvetica font, and you can't see your own soul and your own consciousness, present in the actual card, so that's what I think Lumen meant when he was talking about the internal ghost, or the ghost in the box. It's like a special irreplaceable aspect of a note box and note card system.
Yeah, it's very interesting. All right, well, that wraps up all the questions that I had written down, so, and the ones that just popped into my head as we were talking. So thank you very much for the hour of your time to talk. I had a great time talking with you, so
yeah,
thank
I
you.
loved it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nicolas. Right. And
No problem.
I'll see you in the community. So
yep, you'll see me in the comment section in the future. So
I love it. All right, man. Have a good day.
You too.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
Wait, recording is stopped. Yeah, I want to say outside the recording as well.